Welcome, everybody. My name is Belinda. Thank you so much for joining us for our very first episode of Coffee Corner. I am super excited. I have been waiting for this event for over a month now. So as I said, my name is Belinda. I am the head of events and community here at Goldcast, and I am just one of your hosts today. But again, super excited to be here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I see a lot of you have already started putting some things in the chat. So let us know. We're asking folks like, what's your favorite go-to coffee? So love to see all the comments here. We have black coffee. We have cold brew. There's a few cold brews. We have a dirty chai. I'm all about the white chocolate mocha. I am like that person who goes to Starbucks every day and like spends all this money on, the fancy coffees. I'm trying to work on that. But anyways, the reason we have launched this new series, right? The whole idea is to really help marketers like yourself who are looking to keep up on the latest trends, right? And so we're going to be sharing with you like some tips, some best practices. We're going to be talking about everything from demand gen to content and events, right? And the whole idea here is obviously to keep you guys informed, keep you educated on what's going on, and hopefully you'll walk away with a little inspiration. And it's important to also note that Coffee Corner is actually in partnership with a few of our friends. So we are hosting this along with our friends at 6th Sense and Qualified. So huge shout out to our friends there. And thank you so much for being a sponsor and being a partner with us on this journey. Now, as I said, this is a new mini series. So today is episode 1 of 4. And so we're going to be bringing you a new episode every quarter, again, where my co-host and I will be kind of sitting down. We're going to be discussing and dissecting, maybe even a little debating, friendly debate, of course. Just, again, talking about what's kind of top of mind for marketers, right? So we're talking about, from brand awareness to developing effective campaigns that drive revenue, to content creation, to building community and, and fostering relationships with your customers. So, as I said, this is the first of many. Registration will be opening soon for our next Coffee Corner episode. But in case you guys are curious about what's coming and you want a little sneak peek, here's a schedule of our next 3 episodes. So after this, we have episode number 2 on May 15th. We're going to be talking about small in-person events. Why are we seeing this shift from going towards more smaller, intimate field events versus spending money on trade shows? In August, we're going to be talking about the customers, right? How do we excite and delight them? And, how can we use events to really help elevate that customer experience? And then the last one will be the last quarter in November. And this is all about having community, right? It's so important to be able to build community, and, events can be a really effective channel to help you do that. So really looking forward to these episodes. And again, stay tuned for how to register for those upcoming events. Now, a few housekeeping notes for you guys before we jump in. As always, we always love to hear from you guys. So please, comment. If you hear something that resonates, let us know. Feel free to drop that into the chat. If you have any questions at all for either one of the hosts, for our guest speaker later, you guys can drop those questions in the Q&A tab to the right. And then, yes, of course, this is being recorded and the on-demand recording will be available and will be shared with all of you by tomorrow morning. So good stuff to come. And so with that, I hope you guys are excited to meet my co-hosts. I am super pumped to have these 2 awesome people joining me on the stage. So you guys, please give them a digital applause with an emoji or a gift in the chat and give them a warm welcome to my fabulous co-hosts. We have Sarah McConnell. She is the VP of Demand Gen at Qualified, and Ernest Owusu, Senior Director of Sales Development at 6th Sense.
Hello, Belinda.
Hey. How's it going?
Good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Same. So Sarah, tell me, like, what's the coffee of choice for you?
I went really boring today, but I love these mugs so much, and I just made boring drip coffee today. But usually my drink of choice is like a iced vanilla latte, anything iced. Even if it's freezing outside, you're going to find me usually with iced coffee, but I can't ever do it at home that well. So this is just boring drip coffee with honey and milk.
That sounds good. As you heard me mention, I am that person who goes to Starbucks every day. So I'm really trying to scale back. So I've been getting coffee at home now to save on some money, but I'm also just trying to, scale back on just the coffee intake in general. So today it's water, but, representing my mug.
I was gonna say, do you need to scale back though? If it brings you joy, I'm like,
I appreciate that. Thank you. Ernest, hello.
How are we doing? I will say I don't want to sound like a psychopath, but I actually love gas station coffee sometimes.
Whoa,
full choice.
No
I don't know
judgment.
why. The watered down version gets me going a little bit. So I don't have it today. I have at home brew. I think it's Pete's Coffee, but
Nice.
just gonna put it in there. I'm a fan of the gas station coffee sometimes. Just saying it.
Is there a specific one? Like, are you going to like a 7-Eleven or like the Chevron
Nope, just
station?
gas station
Doesn't matter.
coffee that's watered down. I don't know why I like it. Maybe it's because I'm on road trips. I do it. I need it to like wake myself up, but I just like it sometimes. I don't know why.
I love that. I love that. Amazing. Well, you guys, I am so stoked to have you. I can tell already the vibes are good. You know, it's going to be good energy. We're going to have a great time today. So thank you again for just participating and being part of this whole experience. So looking forward to this journey with you guys over the next year, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I don't know if you guys were aware, Goldcast hosted a mini series last week around like video content repurposing. It was like a multi-day event. We talked about the value of video content, you know, creating short form videos and, you know, different ways that you can utilize video content, like repurposing stuff from your events and so forth. So 4 days of just awesome information, great tips overall. And for those of you that are joining us today, if you didn't have a chance to catch that, definitely encourage you to check out the on-demand recordings. But coming off of that event last week, right, I wanted to continue the conversation because I think it's really safe to say that videos are increasingly becoming more and more popular, especially amongst marketers and how we're going about, you know, promoting the company or promoting our products and telling our story, right? And so I don't know, I'm going to share the slide with you guys because I don't know if you've seen these stats before. But you know, let me know if you guys have heard of this, but it actually makes a lot of sense. So we found that 91% of consumers want to see more online video content from their brands, which not surprised there, especially in the age of like social media, and you have all these platforms available to allow you to do that, right? We're obviously our customer base is consuming content very differently these days. 86% of marketing professionals are using video as a marketing tool, and 92% are saying that they're seeing a good ROI, which is resulting in increased sales, brand awareness, and customer loyalty. So I specifically want us to kind of hone in on that last statistic about, you know, how we can really utilize, you know, video content to help us, you know, tell the customer, tell our story and really create more engagement and more customer loyalty from those efforts. So, you know, love to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think about that? Like, are you surprised at all by those statistics? Are you not surprised at all? Like, you know, how are you guys, even yourselves, are going about like taking in information?
Yes, I can go first, Sarah. So I definitely say I'm not surprised by that. I think it's really important I'll put my sales hat on here. It's really important that your sales team knows where your customers live and what kind of content they're going to typically consume. Because I do know that when we push out really good video content, our team actually looks to see the engagement within that, and we piggyback off of that to try and drive conversations, right? We also know that if we're in an active deal and we're seeing that certain prospects are engaging with that, not only does it help us multi-thread better, but also kind of pushes the conversation in times where maybe deal is slower. So I'm a huge advocate for it. And I think it's really important from a salesperson to know like where our customers go, what they love, and to piggyback off of that to drive conversations.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by those statistics at all. And I think even the poll proves a little bit, even like the types of video content, there's just such a wide breadth of video content that you can be utilizing as a company. Yeah. So, you know, everyone's doing it. And I think there's always this, like, we've been trained a little bit by B2C, even in B2B. And as consumers, I think we're just so used to video content, like any platform that we're on, from social media to LinkedIn to TikTok, like it's all video first now. So it's always so interesting to see that bleed into like the B2B trends as well. So yeah, not surprised by those statistics.
Yeah. And real quickly too. Yeah. So we did just launch a poll here asking folks kind of, you know, how are they currently using it, you know, and see here, you know, across the board, right? Like to your point, Sarah, right? There's just so many different formats, which I think is great. And, you know, product demos, you know, using it for product launch announcements and customer testimonials, which I think is a very common one. And see here, it looks like most folks are using it for social media. So of course, right? And I think, you know, to that point, right, there was kind of gone are the days when video advertisement was really meant for like those really large organizations who had like the massive budgets. But because of platforms like YouTube and TikTok and just the social media trend in general, it's really opened the door, right? Like for anybody and everybody to utilize video and to basically market themselves or, you know, market their product. And so, you know, I kind of want to highlight a specific example because, for me, I live on LinkedIn. That's kind of my go-to for getting information, kind of staying connected with folks, staying connected with my network or just learning new things. But there's a lot of great examples, I think, on LinkedIn in terms of what a lot of organizations are doing and how they're utilizing that video content. And so one of my favorites right now is from Sendoso. And I think most of us here are probably very familiar with Sendoso. We use them to help, distribute our swag for events or, send out speaker gifts. Our sales team uses it for booking meetings and so forth. But, if you go to their LinkedIn page, right, and you look at the videos they posted, I mean, it's everything from, their customers are like submitting videos showing them, unwrapping their gifts, doing these big reveals, which, as you know, I think is like a big TikTok thing to do, right? But, being able to showcase the gifts that they're getting or, customer testimonials advocating for, how much value they're getting out of the platform. But additionally, what I really love was, going back to, again, like telling the story and really kind to connect with your audience is how they're using their employees, right? There's all these great videos showing the Sendoso employees having fun, or they're, how they're interacting with other customers, or they're, being present at an event, or even just giving us a behind the scenes kind of a glimpse. And then additionally, education, right? They have how-to videos. So they're short, maybe, 30, 60-second videos offering some tips. So for instance, the Katie Panier, who's their, kind of product evangelist, she has these videos that she's doing and saying like, hey, for you salespeople out there, how do you send a gift without sounding too bribey, if that's a word, right? So, she's giving a tip on how you can structure your email. So obviously very valuable education tips and best practices. But I do want to share with you guys, if you don't mind, my absolute favorite video that I've seen on there. They just did a product announcement about their party links. I don't know if you guys have heard about party links. And they did a fun video, it looks like kind of campaign where they involve some children. And who doesn't love kids? So I'm going to actually share this with you guys. Let me get this on my screen. All right, here it is. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Oh no, you can't. Oh no. Okay, never mind. Well, wasn't able to show the video. Hello, real time. This is what happens on live events. But basically, right, the kids, they had various leadership, and they had their kids on the video pretending to be them, and they were just promoting the new feature of Party Links. And I thought it was just adorable and just a really great way of them showing their personality through this videos. So I don't know if you guys have any similar stories or brands that you follow.
Yeah, I think one of the brands that I really love on social media is Clue. And I think for a few different reasons, they just have a really wide variety of video types. So again, seeing product announcements or product demos in video, that's kind of become commonplace. I think we all expect that out of brands.
Yeah.
What Clue does really well is they have kind of the same short, very brings in a lot of personality type videos, where it talks a lot about the pain points of their persona. It's something that you can connect to as the persona. It's very top of funnel. It's not product pitchy. It's just something that gets you to connect with the pain point as the persona. And I really love those type of, and Sendoso does that, I think, to your point, does that really well too. I've seen a lot of these. Another one I saw, Zoom Info. I had a video pop up on my LinkedIn where it was a day in the life of an SDR. And I think just humanizing the people at your company just gives so much personality to brands and makes them stand out. And again, it's not product heavy. It's more just trying to get you as a potential buyer to have an affinity for that brand. And I love seeing these happen more and more at places like Clue and Zoom Info, Sendoso. They're all doing it really, really well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say the connection to persona is probably the most important if you can do it. I think one organization that I love historically done an awesome job with video is Gong. They actually had a series a couple years ago, and I don't think they do it anymore, but basically they would have certain influencer SDRs in their org just do cold calls, and you'd hear the objections, hear them failing, and there's nothing better than seeing someone go through the same challenges and pains that you have in your role in real time, and through that seeing a lot of engagement, because obviously these are the personas they're selling into, and they see how hard it can be, but they're also using their product as well. So Gong has historically done an awesome job. That particular tactic was really helpful, at least for me, to learn how to use a product, but they've always had some good content out there, and I love to see what they do.
Yeah. I think especially over the last couple of years, right? Our attention spans have just shrunk. I mean, I think, now it's anything 30 seconds or less, or maybe that's just me, right? It's just,
It's not just you.
Right. But like, like you said, like there's all this amazing information out there, right? And we know that our audience is seeking content that's engaging and it's entertaining and educational, right? But like, oh my God, there's just so much, right? There's just so much digital noise, right? So like, how do we keep them coming back? Like, how do we hold on to that attention? Like once we have it.
Yeah, if I had to speak on that, I think the biggest thing is, people want, like, basically they're going for what they want, right? And if you have the ability to make it as tactical, as tangible as possible, at least from a sales perspective, typically we're looking at content on videos or even just reading. It's like, what can I actually take away from it in real time and use it today? So the best ways of driving engagement from a salesperson is to make it like very specific to the persona, something they can take away immediately to use to find a way to be effective in their job, and that works best for us.
Yeah. I was just saying this. I was actually just doing like a webinar earlier today, and we were just talking about like the different types of events that you can do. And what I'm seeing that's trending right now in terms of just format is like more of those how-to like type of events, right? Like it's a quick 10, 15 minute, session. And I am giving you tactical tips and things that you can walk away with and apply to your job immediately the next day. Right. And I think, like, to your point, like that's really all anybody wants, right? They just want to know, like, what do I need to do and how do I do it? Right.
Yeah, I think for us to bring people coming back, I start always with segmentation. So it's not enough, I think, for us just to create one video and assume that that's going to resonate with everybody that we are messaging to. Because especially for like, there's customers. So I think the how-to videos, the product education are just vastly different. Even product demos that we're doing should be, in my mind, different for customers because they are looking for tactical. Like, I use your product. How can I start? How can I be better at this? What am I missing in your product? How can I, make the most out of what I'm paying for? And then you've got your prospects. And even then I'm like, okay, I need to segment even farther in our prospects to different personas. We've got like our executives, and then we've got our, our end users that we're trying to sell to. And I think from a content perspective, it's about just trying a lot of different things. And once something kind of hits, and you're like, okay, for this particular segment, maybe like the social media videos I was talking about that Clue does, where it's like TikTok style videos that's humorous and talks to persona. Okay, that's doing really well here, but like our executive audience doesn't really love that type of content. They want something a little more like thought leadership. So for us, I think we tested a lot of different things and then started to really, really segment down and then keep producing different styles for that particular segment. So again, like customers is something different than we would give to our like executive prospects versus our end users. And then the last thing I'll say for getting people to come back is I'm always like, if it's not useful, so if it's not going to either make them better at their job or make them better at using your tool, or if it doesn't bring them some sort of like humor or joy in what they're doing, then I'm like, why would they come back to this? So I'm always trying to find ways to like either make it useful, engaging. We're really lucky that we market to marketers. So I know they have kind of an eye for like flashy or cool or unique. So we bring that a lot into our videos. But I think like the humor and bringing something to their day helps bring them back to your videos and expecting that from you as a brand.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. It's humanizing the brand for sure. And and to your point, right. It always comes down to that, regardless of what you're doing, any of your marketing programs or your events, right? It's all about knowing your audience and meeting them where they're at. So, I think it's a great point that you brought out as far as like, videos are not going to be one size fits all. Right. You really got to understand the persona that you're going after and what's really going to resonate with them and what that looks like. So 100% agree with that. And, I am all about, and maybe it's just because I'm the events person, I am all about leveraging, storytelling and really amplifying the customer voice. Like you always hear like, what's a better way to sell than to have the customer sell it for you. Right. And you have people who come to your events or, engaging with you, and they don't always want to have like a sales pitch. Right. They just want to hear from someone else who actually has had the experience. So quick story, if you guys don't mind. I actually met a prospect at one of our VIP dinners last year. And she was telling me that she goes to a lot of these types of events because before she agrees to engage with sales or even sit down to have a meeting, she likes to attend the events because she wants to have authentic conversations with other prospects and other customers. She wants to hear their perspective. She wants to learn about their experiences. And that's what makes her determine whether or not it's worth her while to continue a conversation with a brand, right? And so again, like what better way to like tell your story than to have it come from the voice of your customer? And, as the events person, we put on these events, we have these customer sessions, you have all this great content coming out of that. So, it's all about repurposing, right? At least from my world, right? Taking all those kind of golden nuggets of information from customer sessions or, on-site customer interviews and breaking that up and putting it into little like bite-sized videos that people can consume easily. So, hopefully drawing them in that way, at least having some sort of connection where they can relate to a similar problem and like, oh, great, this is a customer that is going through what I've been through. Now, as we think about, as we're putting like these, our video content together, we do still have some sort of responsibility to make sure that we're really representing our brand correctly, right? We want to make sure that there's the same, we're delivering the same tone, right? Messaging consistently across all your videos. And I think one way, obviously, is just to being truly authentic, right? Really being able to showcase your brand's value. And I think, again, going back to Sendoso, I think they did an amazing job with really showcasing who they are and putting their customers and their employees kind of at the forefront of what they're representing, right? And what their brand entails. But like any of the things that we should be thinking about, right? Especially Sarah, with all the content that you've been producing from, your side of things, like what do we need to do to make sure that we're really showcasing the value?
Yeah, I think authenticity as a B2B brand can be really tricky because I think you pointed out with Sendoso, there's so much personality in that. And it is I think it's so deeply rooted in me, and I know a lot of B2B marketers that I know, to make sure everything is so polished and it's very like formal. And it's been really interesting to see the trend in videos shift to less polished, more content, give sort of that authenticity and make it feel a little more real and human. And I think, again, that was so influenced by social media and it's slowly leaking into B2B, which I really like. Something that I will also say is like, be okay failing. We have a studio that we call Qualified Studios. It's where we do all of our video shoots. And going back to that, like authenticity and brand versus polished, I would say like we made mistakes along the way. We would put out videos that we felt like, okay, is this really representative of our brand? We're going to like test, like, can we step out of our box a little bit and show a little bit more personality versus like the polished. And sometimes we would put stuff up on social and be like, you know what? We don't like how this makes our brand look, or this doesn't really feel authentic to who we are, or those like, we have very set brand guidelines that we have. And the team was always really open to feedback in those early days of Qualified Studio. Like, give us that feedback. If this doesn't feel right, if it doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel on brand to us, that's okay. And we did a lot of failing in putting videos out. And I feel like now we've got a really good rhythm of knowing like everyone across the marketing team knows what it means to be on brand for us. We put it in writing. That's always a big exercise. If you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, but how do I make sure the whole team knows? Sometimes making those brand guidelines, especially if you're doing more video content, you're doing it fast, it's worth the exercise. And it might feel kind of like stale and old to make brand guidelines, but I will say we reference them all the time and we find them very, very valuable. So that's something we've leaned very heavily on.
Now, just quick question though for you on that, because I 100% agree with that. I think you should have some brand guidelines that you use as your kind of your pulse to how you want to move forward with your content. But what if you're one of those organizations maybe who just doesn't have that yet, or you just don't have the team in place to kind of help you build that out?
Yeah, I would say if you don't have it built out, pick a few different people across different departments and send them the test first and say like, hey, what's your feedback on this? Is this resonating with you? Like, it doesn't have to be like I said, going through the exercise to put it in writing is valuable because you can always reference back to it. But if you're small, you don't have that, try to get out of your own internal echo chamber. Like, I know we found that even with our own marketing team, like marketers are going to think vastly different than someone on sales or someone in our customer success department. So it's easy for us to make videos from a marketing perspective and say, oh, our customers are going to love this. And if we didn't have brand guidelines that said like, here's how you need to produce the videos, here's how it should feel on message, and here's how it should feel from like personality wise, send it to a couple of our customer success managers and say, hey, is this resonating with you? What do you think about this? And take that feedback. It can be hard to get a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I know I try to avoid that because it can spin your wheels a little bit, but it's worth that exercise, I think, at first, just to get outside of the echo chamber of your own team.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Really good point. I know another area that we've kind of touched on before when we've talked backstage, utilizing like influencers, right? And I know like Ernest, I know you talk a lot about even just internal influencers, and like you've seen actually some traction around, you just being kind of at the forefront and, delivering certain message or content out, and you guys seeing good results from that.
Yeah, definitely. So if you have the opportunity to leverage an internal or external influencer or even a subject matter expert, I highly encourage that. It kind of goes back to the whole like informal aspect of learning from someone who's doing your job, right? We very visibly see differences when we're using video that has an influencer versus not, of higher engagement. Obviously, my team is looking at that and determining different ways to capitalize off of that. So, and again, it kind of goes back to the aspect of like, if someone's doing the job, I can relate to them. I'm gonna listen a lot more closely to what they have to say and use that in my day-to-day job. So we heavily lean into that whenever we have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. I think, I and again, had this conversation too earlier about, using the use of influencers. And again, I think I hate to say this, it's so on trend, but it is. And again, like to your point, I think it's another part of that, making that connection, right? Being able to relate and having a peer like that's in front of you and being able to see them, kind of talk through again some of those challenges and solutions, or just, hearing their viewpoint, and having a better understanding of what they're going through. So
yeah, I think from our standpoint too, influencer is such an interesting thing because I do feel like it's relatively new to B2B, and my brain always immediately goes to like TikTok influencer, and I'm like, what influencer am I going to find for we sell to demand gen and marketing? Yeah. But I think Ernest's point is, your influencer is probably your subject matter expert internally. Really? And I'm lucky enough at Qualified that that's me. We sell to demand gen people. So I am quote unquote like our influencer, but I would never brand myself as that. Like, I don't feel like an influencer. So I think there is starting to be like I am seeing, I think, more like influencers in B2B. I think it's so much trickier though, because what you're selling is very, specific and deep, and there's so much nuance to like the product that you're selling. So influencers, I think, is still something that's getting tested out, because I'm like, well, how do I bring in someone that's maybe a subject matter expert in demand gen, but they don't know my product all of that well, and how do I make sure they're speaking about it appropriately? And it's not as easy, I think, as B2C influencers. So I totally agree. Find your internal ones first, because they're going to know your product and you have a lot more confidence. And then I'm just curious to see over the next coming years how much more there is like influencer in B2B, and how authentic that feels. Like, do they actually know your brand, and are they actually speaking to you in a way that is going to sell my brand to the people I'm trying to reach? And it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I hadn't thought of it that way either. I was going to say, so when does, what does that look like? Is there a mix of that? Like, when do you use the internal versus the external? Like, is there ever really a good use case for when you want to bring an outsider? But then at what point? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think companies who have done it really well that I have seen is they have like MVP programs. It's like, it is their customers, which you kind of talked about. It's kind of just taking customer marketing and these like customer videos, and just maybe it's breaking them into bite-sized pieces, or giving them a little bit more, or bringing them into less like product pitch and more talking about, something at the pain point to your persona. But I've seen companies do it really well, where they have like a good community of their customers that are willing to engage with them and speak to them because they see so much value in the product. And those kind of become your influencers. It's just a little bit tougher because you've got to find the right people that can speak well. And it takes a little bit more work, but I think it can be done well. And I've seen companies do it well. And I think it does start with like having that customer base that is your buyer that can speak. So I'm like, is it just rebranded customer marketing? Maybe.
Yeah. Love that. All right. So I want to make sure we have time for our guests. So just one last real quick thing from you guys. This is our little kind of segment of our tech shout out. So I always want to make sure that we are, getting our audience informed about like the latest technology out there that's available to them, what kind of tools they can use. So, Ernest, I'm gonna go with you first, right? Like any tools that have been great in terms of either creating content or where to post your content, like any shout outs.
I'll keep it super simple. And again, our audience lives on social media. So LinkedIn video is phenomenal, whether it's in the actual messaging or like posted on the actual platform. That's the basic that we use, and we find a lot of value from that.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, mine, I promise this was not planned, but we use Goldcast for our events. So any of our big thought leadership events, we do something called Pipeline Summit, is always Goldcast. Our content marketer finds it so incredibly valuable because she can cut up, to your point, like we can take a large event that's 3 hours and cut it up into small pieces. We also record some of our shorter form video on something called Riverside, which is just a recording platform. One of the things I've loved about them recently is they've done some AI updates where it does auto transcript and even does like show notes. And so when I'm trying to write like landing page copy, I lean really heavily on their Riverside transcripts and show notes, because they are, of all the AI products I've used to try to take like transcripts, I think theirs has been the most accurate. So have to give that a shout out.
Love that. Okay. Well, dang it, Sarah, you also took mine. So,
Sorry. Wasn't planned.
but so again, bias, right? But Content Lab would have to be my absolute favorite tool right now. So this is our latest feature on Goldcast. Just because I'm not a content person, I'm not a writer, but Content Lab has made things super easy for me to be able to go take our transcripts from our events like this and be able to generate little video snippets, help me produce copy for key takeaways or any social posting that I want to do to recap an event. So that is something that has become so valuable to me, a time saver, no doubt. I'm not spending an hour or more just trying to figure out what I'm going to say and what is it going to sound like. And so it's just been a game changer for me. And, I absolutely love it. So for those event people out there who just don't have all the resources to have somebody do that for you, I think this has just been an amazing tool for that. So, all right. Well, on to our next segment, which is storytelling time. So I am really excited to bring our special guest to the stage. He is the VP of Experiential Marketing at Capital Group. Please welcome everybody, Ajit Krishnakutty.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Good. How are you, Ajit? It's so good to see you.
So good to see you, Ernest. I'm with you on the 7-Eleven coffee. I'm a great fan of that. So thanks for reminding and thanks for showing the vulnerability that we are not drinking Starbucks.
Amazing. Well, Ajit, I know you're not a stranger to the Goldcast stage, so I'm so happy to have you here joining us again. I know you guys are doing some really amazing things at Capital Group. From our conversations, it sounds like you guys are investing a lot in your video content. Most recently, you have been investing in a broadcast studio and launching a new podcast. So we want to hear all about the things like, what has been sort of your vision around your video content strategy, what kind of led to that, and, where is it going from here?
Yeah, I think great conversations. And Sarah, you stole the thunder for Riverside, so you're absolutely using the right tools. But I would say from a financial services perspective, Belinda, like any other marketing perspective, video plays a very critical role in that. And what I did was I basically Googled what are the validation points why we should be using video as marketeers, copy pasted that 15 or 16 data points in your Copilot right when you're on the call, and told me to give the top three topics of that or synthesis of that one. And here's what I got. 60% of the site visitors will watch a video if available before reading any text. Mm-hmm. 1 minute of a video is worth a staggering 1.8 million words. And 56% of the consumers believe that if a company has a website, it should include a video content. So if you think about those three data points, we always had a great video strategy. I would say great video team, not a great video strategy. Let's put it that way. Mm-hmm. So I took this team over probably right before COVID hit, and then we had to really pivot into virtual. That's when we started using OpenReel. And if you guys have not used OpenReel is a great solution for you to essentially capture anyone virtually across anywhere in the world. Great content locally in the cloud, 4K videos. So if you think about that strategy from there, we had to pivot from an events perspective into a virtual strategy too. And then we were thinking about how do we do it? And we were using, okay tools. We were streaming that at 720p. We were streaming that at a very low resolution, no production value, and everyone was doing virtual. So how do you differentiate ourselves? And that's when we really invested on something what we call it as a broadcasting studio. And it was nothing but a big room with the green curtain on the back, which we converted into a CNN kind of a style studio where we could have a panel sitting there. We can bring virtually folks into that. We can have investment officers from here having conversations with Bloomberg, CNBC, you name it. Right now, we build that capability in that thing. And also, one of the key attributes that we realized was the talent base of it. And we are not in this business, so we had to find a great agency or a studio that would help us broadcasters at a lower cost at a scalable level where we don't need to really hire all this talent within the organization. So we partnered with one of our production partners. They're based in Florida. So any of our events that you would see are produced in our studio, but brought, then taken over through an RTM, SRT, Pearl, whatever that you call it as in terms of the technology, taken to the studio, and that is where we mix it up and then broadcast it as a full-on CNN kind of an experience that we call it as. So that was our step number one as we evolved through the pandemic. And as we came into the post-pandemic world, you're talking about YouTube Shorts. I spend 50% of my life on YouTube Shorts right now. So all of us are guilty of that. So we were thinking about how do you humanize the experiences, especially in a financial services market. We have a ton of webinars around economy, politics, geopolitical aspects, like investment related topics, equity, fixed income, everything. Then we have a new CEO, and he had a great idea to really start a series with, we call it as Conversations with Mike Edlin. If you Google, I encourage each of you to subscribe to it. And this is nothing other than humanizing our investment, managers with their 3 decades of investment, and we are, requesting people to invest 30 minutes on that. We created a podcasting studio. And yesterday is when I realized Spotify also has video content in Spotify, if you don't realize it. If you go to Trevor Noah's show, What Now, which is a great podcast, I would encourage everyone to listen to that. It has certain episodes are video related episodes too. So now what we call our strategy is podcasting. It is video and podcasting together. And we created this whole space, which was used for something else within the organization. We worked with an architecture firm, stood the studio in less than 2 months. And now we have 3 different sets for that. One for product launches, one for kind of like our, what we call it as kind of university practice management kind of a thing, and one for this, this conversations with our CEO kind of a thing. So we can literally use that studio with 3 different backdrops to create it. But end of the day, how are we taking it? We are taking it to social media channels. We are taking it to YouTube. We are taking it to multiple different locations where customers are there. And to your point, Belinda, it's more about how do you synthesize this? How do we look at the data? How do I create smaller snippets of those things? So encourage people to actually watch those things. So that's where we are in the evolution. So long story short, video is a very huge strategy for capital. We've invested a lot of time and effort in creating that infrastructure, but being very thoughtful around how do we create a talent structure for that and a technology structure. And I'll stop there and say that some of the tools that we use is Descript, a great tool if you're really looking at that from a post-production perspective. Sarah spoke about Riverside. OpenReel is a phenomenal technology we use for all the virtual shoots. Photoshop has Gen AI, phenomenal way if you're using that. Sunday Sky, personalizing videos. We have done that quite a bit. 11 Labs, if you really look at voiceovers, and Sora, which is possibly the next AI piece that we're talking about. So that draws a paradigm of how we are looking at videos as a critical part of our marketing strategy as we evolve our thinking process, being in LinkedIn, being in Facebook, being not yet in TikTok. We might get into the TikTok piece of it, but taking it to where clients are. And if you think about your strategy being everyone will come to your website and being and engaging with your AEM, it's the wrong strategy. Meet your clients where they are. And there is a ton of videos out there. Everyone is a content creator. So our intent is to really make the music and not noise. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I love that. And so I'm just curious, Ajit, you're saying you're using the shorter, smaller snippets to hopefully drive people back to viewing the full episodes. Like, what has been the result? I mean, is it working for you? What has been the reception on this?
I really can't say the data points, but it has been, unbelievably awesome. Yeah. We launched it at a global level, so we absolutely see the results on the global level. And there are certain areas in the world, like our geographies in the world, they are literally listening to the audio pieces only. But it's a podcasting strategy. The scripts are done based on those things, and basically you can listen to it. You can also watch it. So we are putting that in every single platform, so to speak. So it's not as a single channel strategy. We are
Right.
leveraging LinkedIn, we are leveraging Apple Podcasts, we are leveraging Spotify, we are leveraging YouTube. And YouTube is where people are right now. So believe
Mhm.
it or not, and again, you need to be on YouTube Shorts for people to see that, oh, that's a great appetizer. Let me go taste the main course.
Exactly.
So you gotta drive that. And like I said, we are all learning, and the best way to learn, and all the time I would say is this is my way of looking and testing this, is to show my son. He's a 16-year-old kid, and if he's very honest about it, I watch him what he's watching, and that's where the kids are, and that's where the people are going into. So
Uh,
if you need a new idea, read an old book. That's the way it is.
well, Ajit, are you on any of these podcasts? I think you need to have your own podcast as well.
I'm not running any podcast. I'm producing the podcast. So I'm essentially, my team is the one who helps produces this podcast. We had a episode 4 shoot day yesterday. But I listen to a ton of good podcasts. Guy Raz is my favorite. Wisdom from the Top. How I Build This. And Trevor Noah, always my go-to person. My God, he puts a
He's
smile on
amazing. Yes, he is. He is one of my faves. I'm glad he had a podcast. I don't know if you remember, with his friend many years ago. Then
Yes.
like went on a hiatus, and so I'm glad he's back. So I got to catch the new one. Yeah.
You gotta catch the new one, What Now, which talks about China, TikTok, and geopolitical stuff. So it's funny, and he's bringing that. He has 40th year birthday, and it's a fun. I would encourage each of you to go watch it. It's called What Now.
Amazing. All right. Little plug for Trevor Noah, as if as if he needs it.
Not a
Amazing.
paid sponsorship.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, Ajay, thank you so much. And I think, again, so exciting to see, and we'll have to definitely tune into this podcast. I think kudos to you and your team, right? It can't be easy to find a fun way and a humanizing way to talk about finance. Again, maybe that's just me, but it's definitely, I think, a task. And I think it's great that you guys have been able to find a way to be able to relay that message to your
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. And I feel like this is a great topic. This is where the world is going towards. Everyone is into videos. And like I said, we even tested your content lab solution, Belinda. Phenomenal. Like I said, you talk about a 15 minutes webinar, it's never going to happen. It's going to be 30 minutes if you have to be really getting into the topic of it. But how do you take it to market post event so that you can really get to the folks who are not able to attend, and give them a snackable, and you got it, like create snackable videos. That's where it is. And I feel like that is where the world is running. Is the 2-minute snackable version, which adds wisdom to somebody's talking point.
Yep, exactly. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because yes, I mean, I think, selfishly, right, events are never one and done, right? So a great opportunity to allow your events and the content from that event to live on way past, the time that the event ends. And again, it's a missed opportunity if you don't use it otherwise. So now, Ajay, hopefully you can hang tight a little bit. We actually have a few questions in the Q&A, so we'll love to get Sarah, Ernest, Ajay's opinions on some of these. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. I'll get this first one here. This is from Candace, and she's asking, do you think overly produced and flashy videos or raw and real videos perform better? Does it vary by platform? Now, I know, Sarah, you were even just talking about earlier, right, about like not posting the most perfection type videos, and sometimes that's okay. So maybe you want to take a stab at that one first.
Yeah, I think we found it doesn't just vary by platform, it varies by the segment that we're serving up a video to. So I am finding that more raw, real videos perform better on social media. So anything like LinkedIn, if your brand has a TikTok page, obviously anything overly produced doesn't do very well on those. But on the flip side, if you're producing a product demo, like it's going to have to be a little produced and a little flashy. I don't think a raw, real product demo is going to show your product in the best light. So if we're producing a product demo, that's going to go out to customers to show them this new feature, or to prospects to show this new feature. So I think thinking about platform, yes, but also thinking about who's on the other end of it. And the short answer of that is you're probably going to have to do both, which is, if you have time and you can, both have a place in your segmentation and in your platforms.
Yeah, and there's one thing I'll add to that too. So I completely agree with what you said, Sarah. But the value of the content, I'd say, trumps everything else, right? So obviously knowing where these personas are going to be, as well as what kind of format works best for them, but making sure that whatever you do, whether it's formal, less formal, that the content is valuable, and they take some really good things away from that. That drives the engagement overall through time.
Great.
I would say, Belinda, is it depends on the industry to industry. I can't think of creating a raw video and putting it up somewhere. From a financial services perspective, it's compliance, it's what we talk, it's the reputation of the organization. You're talking Wall Street's out here, right? So it's a little bit of that. And definitely, I feel like we have done it. Like, for instance, we have our analyst traveling, and they can do a raw video from a site and talk about I'm on a research trip or whatever it is, like not disclosing client details or whatever it is. But those are great videos, which we can use as an intersectional video leading into an analyst panel during an event or whatever it is. But I may not use that to use that as a marketing material outside. So it depends on industry to industry.
Yeah, no, that's a very valid point. So per usual, per typical marketing response, yeah, it depends. It just depends, right? It depends industry, it depends on the persona, it depends on the content, it depends on the platform. So awesome.
Always
Great.
there is a disclaimer.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Our next question, let's see, this is from Daniela. So what part of the sales funnel would you focus on for an organization that is starting from the ground up with a video marketing strategy, online training and certification vertical? So maybe Ernest, I'll point this to you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can take that. So I'd first identify where the gap is in the sales funnel, right? Whether that's like, a velocity issue, you're not converting at a certain stage. Once you have that, then build a segment of accounts that are in that section. And, the good thing about video is ideally top of funnel, you'll have the greatest impact, but you can even go further down funnel and drive engagement, start multi-threading to bring more people into a deal. But I think for everyone, like really identifying where the problem is. And what I typically see is like earlier top of funnel where like deals aren't progressing, you need to get more people involved. If you do really good video, that's a good way to engage different personas that were not aware of your product or your solution, bring them into the fold and try and progress deals that way.
Yeah. The thing I would say is make sure you're really aligned with your executive team on what is your main focus as a company right now. And the answer can't be both. So is it expansion? Is it trying to get customers to expand? Is it trying to get your churn down? If that is the focus of your organization and your executive team like unanimously agrees on that, training, certification, product usage, any plays for expansion or to keep people on your product, that's where I would focus your attention. On the flip side, if your entire executive team is like, we need net new business, we have to grow brand awareness, we need pipeline, we need business, then I would say, okay, think about thought leadership. Like, how are you getting people aware that your brand even exists? How are you driving demand through video with your product? I think anyone that's on this call, marketing teams are getting smaller and smaller. Your resources are strapped. I don't care what company you're at, how big the company is, like you're still feeling that pinch of resources. So put the pressure on your executive team or your leadership team to tell you which of those focuses, retention and expansion or net new business, and then be so incredibly hyper-focused on producing video content in there and don't get distracted from it until you feel like you've done it well and right.
Great advice. Great advice. Awesome. Thank you, Daniela. All right. Our next one is from Nina. And she's asking, do you all have any ideas as to how we can leverage existing webinar recordings to produce video content across other channels? Yeah, so absolutely. So Nina, as you probably heard me when I get the little content lab plug. But yeah, I think, again, this is something that we do a lot here at Goldcast. We take all of our recordings, ultimately at the end of the day, we do want people to go back and hopefully view the actual full recording. But, for example, we have a monthly webinar series, and after each of those webinars, we do some sort of like hot take or takeaway, right? So we'll pull specific little snippets from the recording and like, here's the hot tip of the week, right? And so we're posting that to LinkedIn. Again, that's just primarily the channel that we use because that's where marketers live in terms of trying to find information. So that's just been the most effective channel for us in terms of social media. But, using that to, if, in case someone isn't able to go back and watch the full 45 minutes or 60 minutes of that webinar, we can at least give them some little tidbits to take away that they can still find useful and apply to their jobs. And we continue to share that information. And again, to my point earlier, right, just because the event is over, it doesn't mean like it still can't live on long after it's finished. And so that's a way that we've been able to leverage that. Something else that we're actually exploring now too, we're slowly dipping our feet into the TikTok world, right? So now we're also going to be experimenting with how to use more TikTok video format, right? And, and more so, not only just with our webinar content, but also just doing little demos, right? Like showing cool little features from the product and showcasing that through a TikTok video. But, I'll open up to the group, see if you have any other thoughts on this.
I guess the one thing I'll add to that too is just, again, it aligns with the fact that right now consumers want shorter content. So if you have a really good webinar recording, you can take a tiny little 10, 15-second snippet into whatever channel you're using, use that to drive engagement through video. So the one thing I'll add to that, but that's all I got on my side.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah, I would say mine is less strategic and more tactical, but something that I've learned in trying to create snippets from longer content is if I don't know where to start, or let's say I recorded something a long time ago and I don't have a tool like Content Lab, or it doesn't have AI built into it that can make suggestions, because I think a lot of tools have that now that will suggest pieces of your content that you can use. If you don't have one of those, one of my tips is plug the transcript into, or get the transcript from the webinar or the video, and then I will just control search things like cool, awesome, that's great, I agree, and then go through the transcript to remind myself what in the video stood out. And it's worked almost every time. If I'm like, oh gosh, I recorded this a month ago, I cannot remember what was interesting in this, I'll just search the transcript for those terms, and I can usually find like a short piece of content that I can then cut out and produce. Yeah. Now, a lot of tools can do that for you, but if you don't have them, use the transcript.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. We have one last question from Alex. And that is, what's one video marketing trend you see right now that you wish you would have thought of or known about 5 years ago?
Short videos.
That's such a good question, because I'm like, well, if it wasn't a trend 5 years ago, would have performed well is my first thought. But I think using video for product usage and like how to use your product better is something that maybe 5 years ago wasn't quite as popular, at least in B2B. So to me, I'm like, I wish we had produced more video first content to make our users power users, so that they knew and then could advocate for us. And it's just this flywheel of like, if they're power users, they love your product, it's easy to use, then you've got your MVPs, then you've got your advocates, you've got your influencers, and it feeds like the whole trend. So I think just how to use product videos, I wish we would have done sooner.
Agree. And I think I would add, like Sarah, completely agree to that. And I feel like the video has played a very critical role in humanizing brands from my perspective, like even especially within financial services, and we talk about vehicles and strategies. How easy is it to explain that on a video in a way that a layman could understand? Like we talk about retirement, like we talk about all of those things. These are things that could be complicated, like on a one-page document, or it could be simplified, humanized, and much more, in a way that people understand this in a very simple way. And I wish that was a 5-year back thing. And I'm sure there was, but now I think every brand is trying to really simplify that using smaller, shorter videos, so it's more relatable to a layman.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for your questions and for tuning in. Ajit, thank you again so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to have you as our first official guest and our first episode of Coffee Corner. So thank you for sharing your story. To my host, I mean, guys, job well done. How do you think it went today?
Yeah, this was super fun. I'm so excited for next quarter to see how much usage my Coffee Corner mug gets. I feel like I'm going to come back in a quarter and it's going to just be like well worn. So I thought this was great. I had a lot of fun, Belinda.
I agree. It was awesome. Loved it.
Loved it, Belinda. I felt like a podcast instead of that way.
Yes, amazing. Well, and as a way to say thank you to everybody and to help celebrate our kickoff episode, everybody here is going to get some exclusive Coffee Corner merch. And so I actually forgot to mention this earlier. So everybody will receive their very own Coffee Corner t-shirt. So on the back, it says, let's spill the beans together. And then you also will receive your own coffee tumbler. So you will hear from us after the event, and we will get these items out to you. But again, thank you to everybody involved for being here. Thank you for your time, for your amazing questions, the engagement. I love seeing all the stuff going on in the chat. And thank you again to my amazing co-host and to our guest speaker, Ajit. So take care, everybody.
It's been fun. Appreciate that.
All right. Amazing. Take care.